Let me start by saying I never thought I'd be the guy to find out this way. To be fair, I didn't expect much. I thought Sophia and I were solid. We weren't the kind of couple that people gushed over, but we worked. Or at least I thought we did. Things just fit. We had this routine, you know. Wake up, work, small talk at dinner, binge watch something mindless, fall asleep, rinse and repeat. No fireworks, but no massive fights either. I guess I assumed that's what marriage becomes after a few years. It's comfortable. Sophia, though, she's always been the more emotional one. We'd be sitting on the couch, watching TV, and she'd turn to me, mid-episode, with this weirdly intense look in her eyes, like she was expecting me to say something. I don't even know what half the time. A cumpliment, a deep confession of love? I don't know. She once asked me, "Do you still see me, Lucas? Do I still see you?" Yeah, of course. I see you every day. But that's not what she meant. I think she wanted something more than I was giving. But how much more was I supposed to give? We had a house, a life, the stability. Isn't that enough? I thought it was. Maybe that's where I screwed up. Anyway, this isn't about me missing emotional cues. This is about Jason. And well, I should have known something was up when Mia and Jason started hanging out with us more. I always thought of Jason as one of those too much guys, you know? Like he'd walk into a room and just take it over. Charismatic in that smarmy way. I never paid too much attention to it because, honestly, it was nice not to have to fill the silence when we were all together. Sophia and Mia were best friends, practically glued at the hip. We go on these double dates. Jason cracking jokes, Mia laughing a little too hard, Sophia watching it all with this strange smile that I didn't understand back then. And me? I'd just sit back, content to coast through the evening. Turns out I should have been paying more attention. Mia went out of town one weekend, some yoga retreat or something. You know, the kind of thing people with too much time and money do when they're finding themselves. Sophia didn't go. Said she had work or something. Honestly, I didn't ask too many questions. Jason called that Saturday. Weird, right? Like, he and I weren't exactly close. I figured he'd want to hang out with someone, maybe grab a beer. So I wasn't surprised when he asked if Sophia, and I wanted to join him for drinks at his place. Only I had already made plans to go to this car show, something I couldn't back out of without hearing from the guys about it for weeks. So I told him Sophia might be up for it, thinking nothing of it. She could use the break. It'd probably be nice for her. When I mentioned it, she hesitated for a second. I remember it because she usually jumps at the chance to socialize, but this time she just stared at me, all wide-eyed like I had suggested something crazy. But after a pause, she agreed. Sure, why not? She said, so casual it almost felt rehearsed. The next part, I'm piecing together from what I found out later. Apparently, Sophia went over there, and they had more than just drinks. A few glasses of wine, maybe some tequila, who knows? And Jason, being the charming, always got the right words guy, starts saying things that I hadn't said in a while. Compliments, attention, the works. And it hit Sophia in all the ways I didn't realize she was starving for. One thing led to another. I didn't know something was wrong until a few days later when Sophia started acting off. You know that gut feeling you get when things aren't right, but you can't quite put your finger on why? She was still smiling at me, still doing all the normal wife things, but there was this weird distance. Like she was there, but not present. Then, one night, she broke down. It was late, and I was already half asleep when I felt her shaking next to me in bed. I turned over, groggy, and there she was, tears streaming down her face, biting her lip like she was trying to hold it all together. My first thought was that something happened to her family. I asked, "What's wrong?" expecting her to say something like her mom was sick. But she didn't say that. What she said instead, it knocked the air out of me. I slept with Jason. I sat up, heart racing, brain refusing to accept what my ears just heard. I blinked, confused, because there was no way she just said that. But she kept going, fast, words tumbling out of her like she couldn't stop now that the dam had burst. She told me how it happened, how she regretted it immediately, how it meant nothing. The whole "it didn't mean anything" speech that people always think is somehow comforting in situations like these. But it wasn't comforting. Not even close. I didn't say anything. What was I supposed to say? Scream? Cry? Walk out? I just sat there, my hands gripping the sheets, my mind going blank. The more she talked, the less I heard. It was like a buzzing in my ears, and her words just blended into one endless, muffled apology. She said it was a mistake, that she felt terrible, that she loved me, all the things that should have mattered, but didn't. You'd think after a confession like that, I'd have packed my bags and walked out. But no, I stayed. I didn't even yell. I just sat with it. For days. Weeks even. I went to work like normal. We had dinner like normal. But nothing felt normal. The worst part? Sophia wasn't the only one living with this secret. Mia started coming over more often after that. Every time she did, it felt like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. Sophia would try to act casual around her, but I could see it. The guilt eating away at her every time Mia hugged her or confided in her. And then Mia said something that pushed everything over the edge. We were all sitting around the kitchen table one night just chatting when she looked at Sophia and said, "I think Jason's been cheating on me." I swear to God, you could hear a pin drop. I froze. Sophia went pale, and Mia, oblivious to the bomb she just dropped, kept talking. She was half laughing, trying to play it off like a joke, but you could see the worry in her eyes. I glanced at Sophia, waiting to see how she'd react. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Sophia's face was white as a sheet, her eyes darting anywhere but at Mia. I don't think Mia noticed, but I did. My stomach twisted in knots just watching her, waiting to see how she'd handle the bomb Mia had unknowingly dropped. "I'm sure it's nothing," Sophia finally stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. She tried to smile, but it didn't quite land, and for a moment, I thought Mia might catch on, but she didn't. Instead, she laughed awkwardly, shrugging as if trying to convince herself more than us. I mean, Jason's Jason, right? Always charming, always with that stupid grin. Mia sighed and took a sip of her wine, swirling the glass in her hand. But I don't know, lately he's been acting different, distant. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Sophia and I exchanged a quick glance, and for a second, I saw the sheer panic in her eyes. This was her best friend. They'd known each other for years, had been through everything together. And now, Sophia was sitting here, listening to Mia's suspicions about her own husband, knowing full well that she was the reason for that distance. I was caught in the middle of it all, knowing Jason had betrayed Mia, knowing Sophia had betrayed me. And yet, the worst part was I had no idea what to do. I wasn't the guy who confronted things head on. I never had been. Instead, I just sat there pretending like everything was fine, all while my insides twisted into a tangled mess of anger, hurt, and confusion. After that night, things changed, but not in the way you might expect. We didn't have some massive blowout fight. There were no screaming matches or dramatic stormouts. Instead, it was this slow, suffocating tension that settled into every corner of our lives. The kind that you can't escape, no matter how hard you try. Sophia tried to carry on like nothing had happened, but I could see the guilt eating her alive. She'd avoid my eyes at breakfast, sit on the other side of the couch at night, and whenever we were out in public with Jason and Mia, I swear she'd shrink into herself, like she was hoping the ground would swallow her whole. Mia, on the other hand, started confiding in Sophia more. I could see the pain on her face every time she talked about Jason's behavior. How he'd been working late more often, how he seemed less interested in their life together, how she felt like she was losing him. It killed Sophia. I could see it. Sometimes I wondered if Mia noticed the cracks in Sophia's facade, if she sensed that something wasn't quite right. But every time Sophia offered her some empty reassurance, "I'm sure he's just busy," or "You're overthinking it," Mia would nod, accepting the lies because it was easier than facing the truth. And me? I just stood there, caught in the crossfire, pretending like I didn't see my wife unraveling, pretending like I wasn't losing her too. Jason, though, he carried on like nothing had happened. He'd flash that same cocky grin, slap me on the back like we were old pals, and act like his little indiscretion with my wife was just some forgotten footnote in his life. It was maddening. Every time I saw him, I felt this boiling anger rising up in me, but I didn't know where to direct it. It wasn't like I could just call him out. What was I supposed to say? "Hey man, I know you slept with my wife, but let's keep this quiet for Mia's sake." It was this sick, twisted game we were playing, pretending like everything was fine, while both of our marriages slowly crumbled from the inside out. One night, after one too many drinks, Jason pulled me aside at some party we were at. I was already on edge, barely able to look at the guy without wanting to punch him, but he didn't seem to notice. Or care. "Hey man, I just want to say," he slurred, a lazy grin plastered on his face, "I really admire what you and Sophia have. You guys seem solid." I almost choked on my drink. Solid. That was the word he used. I wanted to laugh in his face, but all I could do was stare at him, my hands gripping the glass, so hard I thought it might shatter. "Yeah," I said, barely able to keep my voice steady. Real solid. He didn't catch the sarcasm, just patted me on the back and stumbled off to find another drink, leaving me standing there with the weight of everything pressing down on my chest. The breaking point came one night when Mia and Jason invited us over for dinner. Just a casual thing, a double date like old times. Except nothing was like old times anymore. Every word, every glance between the four of us felt like it was loaded with secrets, with lies that were teetering on the edge of being exposed. Mia, bless her heart, had no idea. She'd made this whole spread, candles on the table, wine flowing. She was so proud of herself, trying to keep things light and fun, while Jason barely looked at her, and Sophia could hardly make eye contact with anyone. Halfway through dinner, Mia brought it up again, her suspicions about Jason. It was like she couldn't help herself, like she needed to voice the fear out loud, hoping someone would tell her she was crazy. "I just feel like he's slipping away from me," she said, her voice quiet, raw. She was staring at her glass of wine, swirling it around, not looking at any of us. "I don't know, maybe it's just a phase." Sophia couldn't take it anymore. She dropped her fork, the sound echoing through the quiet room, and stood up abruptly. "I need some air," she muttered, heading for the door before anyone could stop her. Mia looked confused, but I knew. Sophia was seconds away from breaking, from spilling everything. I excused myself and followed her outside, finding her sitting on the porch steps, her head in her hands. "I can't do this anymore, Lucas," she whispered when she heard me approach. I can't keep lying to her. I stood there, hands in my pockets, unsure of what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her to go back in there and confess everything. Let it all out, face the consequences. But another part of me, the selfish part, wanted to keep this secret buried, because once it was out, everything would fall apart. And maybe, deep down, I wasn't ready for that. The night came crashing down a few days later when Mia finally confronted Jason about her suspicions. I wasn't there for it, but I heard about it through Sophia, who had been a wreck ever since our dinner at their place. Apparently, Mia had found something, a text, a call, I don't know exactly what, but it was enough to tip her over the edge. She'd confronted Jason, and to everyone's surprise, he hadn't denied it. He didn't confess about Sophia, though. He just admitted to being unfaithful, vaguely enough that Mia didn't know who the other woman was. Mia called Sophia that night, sobbing, begging her to come over and help her through it. And Sophia, being the mess that she was, went, can you imagine that? The woman who slept with her best friend's husband, sitting there, comforting her while she cried about his infidelity. It was the most messed up thing I could have imagined. It's been a few weeks since Mia found out, and things are still unresolved. Jason's moved out, at least temporarily. Mia's a wreck, of course. Sophia? She's not much better. The guilt is still there, eating away at her. And me? I don't know what's next. I don't know if we can survive this. If our marriage can ever recover from something like this. Hell, I don't even know if I wanted to. Part of me feels like staying is just prolonging the inevitable. But another part of me, the part that's scared of change, of being alone, is holding on for dear life. Sophia and I haven't talked about it much since that night. It's like we're both avoiding the conversation, hoping that if we just ignore it long enough, it'll go away. But deep down, I know it won't. Secrets have a way of coming out, whether you want them to or not. And once they're out, there's no putting them back. You know what they don't tell you about infidelity? It's the silence that'll kill you. The constant, unbearable nothing that stretches out between you like a canyon you can't cross. Sophia and I used to have conversations, even if they were about stupid things like what groceries we needed or what to watch on Netflix. Now, we barely speak. We've mastered the art of coexisting without actually connecting. Every day we go through the motions. I wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, and pretend that we're still us. But we're not. We haven't been us since she walked into Jason's house that night and let everything spiral out of control. I think we're both scared of what happens next. I'm terrified of what it'll mean if we sit down and actually talk about this. Will it be the end? Or worse, will we try to patch things up and pretend we can move on, knowing this giant, ugly thing is sitting in the middle of our marriage like a bomb waiting to go off again? Sophia's guilt is eating her alive, and it's written all over her face. She flinches whenever Mia's name comes up in conversation, and lately, She started avoiding her altogether. I can't blame her. I'm not even sure how Sophia managed to sit through those tear-filled phone calls, knowing she was the reason for Mia's pain. The weight of it must be crushing. One night, I caught her staring at the picture of us on our wedding day. You know the one. The cheesy shot where we're standing in front of the church, all dressed up, looking like we actually believed we'd have a happy ever after. I wanted to say something, asked her if she was thinking about how much things had changed since then, but I didn't. Instead, I just watched her, the silence growing heavier between us. She finally looked up at me, her eyes red like she'd been crying. "Do you hate me?" she asked, her voice so small, so vulnerable that it took me by surprise. I didn't know what to say. Hate? No, I didn't hate her. I was angry, hurt, betrayed, all of those things, but hate? I wasn't sure I even knew what that felt like. "I don't know," I said, and it was the truth. "I don't know what I feel anymore." She nodded, like she expected that answer, like she already knew that whatever we had was unraveling, thread by thread. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and I knew she meant it, but that didn't make it any easier to hear. A few days after that, Mia stopped by, just showed up at our front door, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I wasn't prepared for it, and neither was Sophia. We hadn't seen Mia since Jason had moved out, and I could tell from the way Sophia's hands shook that she wasn't ready for this kind of confrontation. "Can we talk?" Mia asked, her voice rough, as if she'd been crying again. Sophia didn't even have time to answer before Mia stepped inside, brushing past her like she couldn't bear to wait for permission. I hovered awkwardly in the background, pretending I wasn't witnessing the most uncomfortable conversation that was about to happen. I thought maybe Mia had figured it out, that she'd put the pieces together and realized Sophia was the other woman. But I was wrong. "I'm done," Mia said, collapsing onto our couch like she didn't have the energy to stand anymore. "I've been thinking about it, and I'm done with Jason. I don't even care who it was anymore." Sophia flinched at that. Her shoulders tensed, her hands clenched into fists. She looked like she was holding her breath, terrified that if she moved or said the wrong thing, Mia would see everything. The whole ugly truth. But Mia wasn't looking for the truth anymore. She was just broken, and she wanted her best friend. "I can't stay with him," Mia said, her voice shaking. "Even if it was just once, I'll never trust him again." Sophia opened her mouth to say something, but I could tell she didn't know what to say. How could she comfort Mia when she was part of the reason her marriage had fallen apart? So I stepped in. I don't know why. Maybe I was trying to protect Sophia, or maybe I just couldn't stand to see Mia like that. "You don't have to explain yourself to us, Mia," I said quietly. "If you're done, you're done. Jason messed up. You deserve better." It wasn't a lie, but it also wasn't the whole truth. After Mia left, Sophia didn't say a word. She just sat on the couch, staring at the door like it might burst open again and Mia would walk back in, screaming about the betrayal she still didn't know about. I could see it on her face, the panic, the shame, the crushing guilt. "Do you think she'll ever find out?" Sophia asked after what felt like hours of silence. I didn't have an answer for that. Part of me hoped Mia would never find out, because if she did, if she ever pieced together that her best friend had been the one sleeping with her husband, it would destroy her. And it would destroy whatever was left of us too. "I don't know," I said, and that was the truth. But the truth is, secrets have a way of crawling to the surface, no matter how hard you try to bury them. Eventually, you hit a point where you can't keep ignoring what's broken. And I knew we were at that point. The lies, the guilt, the silence. It was all weighing us down, dragging us deeper into this mess that we couldn't escape. One night, after what felt like an eternity of pretending, I finally sat Sophia down. "We can't keep doing this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're not fixing anything by staying quiet." She didn't argue. She just sat there, staring at me with those eyes that once held so much love, now clouded with regret. "What do we do then?" she asked, her voice shaky. I didn't have an easy answer for that. I still don't. Maybe we needed a break. Maybe we needed therapy. Maybe we just needed to finally admit that whatever we had was over the moment she crossed that line with Jason. I don't know, I admitted, but we need to start by being honest. With each other. Sophia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm scared, Lucas," she whispered. "Me too," I said, and for the first time in weeks, it felt like we were on the same page. So here we are, on the edge of something, a decision. Maybe we'll try to fix this. Maybe we'll decide it's too broken to repair. I honestly don't know yet. All I know is that we can't keep living in this weird limbo of half-truths and silence. The guilt, the lies, they've taken their toll. On me, on her, on everything we thought we had. And it's exhausting. At some point, you have to decide if the fight is still worth it or if it's time to walk away. But no matter what happens next, one thing's for sure. Secrets have a way of coming out. And when they do, they don't just destroy one person. They rip through everyone involved, leaving nothing but wreckage in their wake. And maybe, just maybe, that's where we'll find out who we really are. There's no clean, satisfying conclusion. No grand resolution where everything's magically fixed and we all go back to normal. Things like this don't wrap up neatly. They just drift. Some days are okay. Some days are hell. Some days I feel like maybe we can make it through this, and other days I wonder why we're even trying. Sophia and I are still here in this uncomfortable in-between space, trying to figure out what's left. We haven't told Mia. I don't think we ever will. Not because I'm trying to protect Jason. I couldn't care less about him at this point, but because I don't want to be the final nail in the coffin of her already shattered world. She's been through enough, and honestly, so have I. We talked about therapy. We've talked about a separation. We've even talked about divorce in that hypothetical, distant way, like we're both afraid of saying it out loud. It's like standing on a cliff, looking down, wondering if you should just jump or wait to see if someone pulls you back. I don't know if I'm ready to jump yet, but I don't know if I'm willing to stay on the edge forever either. What I do know is that everything's changed. Maybe it's irreparable. Maybe we're just holding on to the ghost of what we used to be. But here's the truth. Life goes on, even when it feels like it shouldn't. You wake up, you go through the motions, and somehow you keep moving forward. Whether or not you're moving towards something better, well, that's still up in the air. So yeah, this is the end. But like everything else in life, it's just one of many. Maybe it's the end of us. Maybe it's the start of something new. Either way, we're not going back to what we were. And maybe, just maybe, that's for the best.